This is the Nth Edge trigger function for the Rigol. As far as I can tell, the Siglent does not have this function. I sent them an email a couple of weeks ago asking if there was anything in their repertoire on the Siglent that would allow me to do this kind of triggering, and frankly they never even responded. They didn't acknowledge the email or send anything. And that's in contrast to Rigol. I sent a message to them about the same time on another issue, and they got back to me right away. In fact, Jason, who has done a bunch of videos on their website for YouTube, was very helpful. So that's kind of a downer for Siglent to just ignore their emails. It was sent to the exact address that their website says to send it to, but no response. At any rate, so I'm going to assume that Siglent does not have Nth Edge trigger. Now, let me show you first what Nth Edge trigger is all about, and kind of an example here. If you, this is a simplified diagram of a fairly typical circuit in, particularly in embedded systems today. You have 4 signals, A, B, C, and D, that you want to select and apply them one at a time to a latching modulator. The modulator latches on the negative edge of the signal. The counter, which advances the selection, so it starts out at 0, 0, which is A, and then 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, and then goes back to 0, 0 again, triggers on the positive edge. So basically, the signal goes high, the clock advances, the signal is selected and settles on the input, and then at the trailing edge, the descending edge, it's latched into the modulator. And then that, for example, might generate a particular tone, a marker of space, or whatever. The reason that Nth Edge trigger is useful is, suppose that you want to trigger on, say, the 3rd, or the 30th, or the 3000th, or the 4096th pulse in this train. And there certainly are selectors that select at least 64 levels, or 64 signals, and even more in some complicated systems. And that's what Nth Edge trigger allows you to do. So here, for example, is a burst of pulses that occur separated by quite a bit. This is 1 millisecond per division, so that's every 5 milliseconds there is a burst. And now let's zoom in a little bit. That's the burst. Now right now I have it set to trigger on the first edge. And then if you watch as I change the edge number, it jumps to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. That's what Nth Edge trigger does. It's a very useful trigger, and I can see lots of applications for it. I wish the Siglent had one, but it apparently does not. So this is one of those that's a big plus for Rigol. Let's look now at the delay trigger, another function that the Rigol has that the Siglent does not. However, I think this may be one that you can do with the pattern trigger on the Siglent, but we'll see that later. At any rate, on the Rigol, the way this works is you set up the type. You set, it's a 2-channel measurement, source A, in this case is channel 2, and the edge A is falling. This is channel 2 down here. Source B is channel 1, and the edge type is rising. So in other words, it's triggering on a delay between this falling edge and this rising edge. This is channel 1, but it's source B. This is channel 2, source A. Then you set the delay type here, and I have it greater than, and the amount is 1 microsecond. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cause the delay between this falling edge and this rising edge to approach 1 microsecond. It's 1 microsecond per division, so that's right on a microsecond. And it says it has to be greater than a microsecond. You may notice that this is moving slightly to the right there, approaching that other edge. And at that point, it loses trigger because now the delay is no longer a microsecond or more. If we go back just one step, it will trigger. So in other words, it's allowing you to trigger on the difference between an edge of one signal and an edge of another. You also can, of course, change. You can select source A can be rising or falling. Source B can be rising or falling. So you could do from falling edge to falling edge, or from rising edge to rising edge, etc. It's a useful feature, and particularly where you're looking at bus timings and you need to trigger on an anomaly. I think it would be a very useful feature. Once again, it's the delay trigger on the Rigol. Quick add-on, I tried to find any description of the delay trigger on the Rigol website, their YouTube videos, any of that. They have a set of videos, a playlist with the advanced trigger functions, but even though the Rigol has the delay, it does not appear in any of their videos. So what you see here is what I have learned from playing with it, and if I've gotten something wrong, well, perhaps someone can correct me, but at the present time there's no videos on YouTube that talk about the delay trigger on the Rigol, so this is as best as at least as I can get it.